Welcome back. Pretty Penny Pre-Cuts, your stitching host Laura Bosma in the Southeastern Quilt and Textile Museum for our Fall Project 2020 Stitch Along Midnight Pumpkin. We're going to couch the pumpkin collar, and that's a sepal, S-E-P-A-L, and then we're going to couch the flowers. So that's where we're at right now. I hope you enjoyed doing the blanket stitch and that went quickly for you. Again, in the previous video, we blanket stitched the stem and then the portions of the orange pumpkin. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you enjoyed the color of thread and the contrast of the light and the dark in a variegated thread. So I've got my stem blanket stitched, and I've got my pumpkin blanket stitched, and then we're going to move on to this collar or sepal portion. I am going to go ahead and use the green that's in your kit, and it's an Amazon, it's called Amazon Green. And my suggestion to you is, again, couching is the laying on of threads, laying them over to hold something down. I don't love couching stitches that are a couple of inches long. Those are something that quilters would say, you know, those are toe catchers, or those are something that the cat's claws would be caught in. So I'm going to encourage you to use a series of long and short stitches. So I could do one long stitch over to there, and on this short end that would be okay. But what I'm going to do instead is split the difference, and I'm going to go in the middle. And again, I'm about a 1/16 of an inch away from the perimeter edge. I'm going to go down. This is a little bit of a stab stitch. A stab stitch is where you go from the back to the front, and then you go front to the back. My second stitch, I'm going to go up at the very little ruffly edge right here. And then I'm going to go back in right here and kind of connect those two. So in the end, it looks like one long stitch, but it's actually two short ones, and I think it's just a little bit safer. My second one, I'm going to come up, just happens to work out for me with the way I've got my stem. I'm going to come out right at the perimeter edge of this stem. I'm on the green and not on the brown. And this is a short guy, so I'm going to literally do what a true couching stitch is, and I'm going to come up here and I'm going to go over right at the edge, right where the green and the orange meet. I'm poking into the orange. So I'm going to put one stitch there, and it doesn't matter whether behind there you come all the way back up to here. Since I'm so close to the point right here, I'm actually going to come down. So it's okay if about a ½ an inch or so of thread travels on the back. You're not going to see that until I show you what it looks like from the back. I'm going to come in about a 1/16 of an inch from the point right there and bring my thread up. And then I mentioned this a lot. Use your thread as a map. If you want to know where should I be going with it, draw it along there. If you want to, even break out your mechanical pencil or your white Clover wash away iron away marker and put a little bit of a line there. I usually just use the thread if I'm not trying to do a real curvy spot, especially if it's straight, as a guide for what I'm trying to do. So I want to go again, I want to split the difference between here and where this stem is in the stitching. So I'm not going to go through the green thread, but I'm using it as a road map, but it'll tell me that that's, you know, roughly about halfway is there. So I'm going to go in, and it looks like I'm inside my green thread, but I'm not. There's that. And then I'm going to come up under the stem. Again, where the stem and the green meet, I want to come up on the green. And then I'm going to draw that thread back down there and put it in as close as I can to where that was. So again, long and short stitches are oftentimes used. Sometimes they're used as a filler. In this particular case, I'm using them just so what I'm stitching doesn't end up too long. Let's do one more. So I'm going to move over, you know, probably less than 1/4 of an inch, a little more than 1/8, but less than 1/4. and I'm up under the stem. I came through the green. I'm going to draw a line, and I know I want to end up where this point is right here on the sepal. And again, I'm just going to eyeball what's the difference of roughly about halfway. And it could be, it could be, kind of a 70-30 kind of thing, or a 75-25 kind of thing. I don't always love all these stitches to breaks and the stitches to match up. So on this one, I want to go either a little longer or a little shorter. I'm going to go a little longer. I'm going to go to the back. Then I'm going to come up at the point of the sepal down here. And again, I'm about a 1/16 of an inch away from it. Just want to be able to be really sure I hold it down. And then I'm going to go backwards. I'm going to go back up, and I'm going to go in right next to it, right kind of where the stitches originally went in. So that gives you an idea of drawing that delineation, the line, the embellishment through the sepal, and we'll just keep going. You'll put one here, you'll put one here, you'll put one in between each point. So actually it'll be between here, on top of here, between here, on top of here, repeat until you get all the way around and do this little edge up here. So I'm going to stop there and let you see what it looks like at the back. It's not super neat, but you can see it's all there. It's not too loose, so we don't have to worry about that. If I ran out of thread, then I would tie a knot right here, cut the thread off, rethread, and start again. In interest of time, I'm going to leave the rest of that for me to stitch later. So that's one way to couch, to hold a motif down. The second way to couch that I want to show you is for our flowers. And again, I opted to use 6 instead of the 7. I'm going to go ahead and use the thread that I selected for this. And this is the Color Variations. I think it's called Violet. So, or maybe it's Pansy. See how it's got actually yellow and purple in it. What I'm going to stitch with, I'm going to choose to stitch on this darker one so that you can hopefully really see what I want to do. So I'm going to come up in the center of this particular petal. And again, I'm just eyeballing it. If you think you need to get a ruler out and figure out exactly what center is, go for it. If you think you need to use your mechanical pencil and put a little pencil dot or a white clover dot there so you know what center is, absolutely go for that. I'm thinking it's not super necessary, but that's just my personal opinion. Now, to couch this flower down, you could do exactly what we did with the sepal. You could put a stitch through the center of the convex part of the petal, the sticking out part. You could put another straight stitch through the concave, meaning the in part of the petal. I want to do something different. I want to show you how to do a lazy daisy stitch, and I'm going to do a lazy daisy stitch 6 times, working from the center out and go inside each one of these individual petals. So I went from front to back. I can feel my knot with my index finger that is behind here. I'm going to go back in awfully close. Again, I recommend that you don't split stitches unless you're really doing a split stitch on purpose. The reason I say don't split stitches, don't put your thread right back through thread, is if you need to take this out, you cannot salvage the thread. You've just got to cut it all the way. Cut it away. It tends to just really bungle up. So I'm going to go back in at the center. I'm going to come up about 1/8 of an inch away, hopefully in the center of my petal or as close as I can get to it. And I'm going to make one complete stitch. Notice that I'm coming up inside the circle. Do you see it drawing smaller and smaller and smaller? I hope that you do. Then I'm going to pull it just enough that it looks like a teardrop, but not so darn tight, let me pull it, that it goes straight. I don't really want it to go straight like that. If you over pull it, then just use the blunt end of your needle to get back in there and just loosen it up again. Give yourself a little bit of slack. Now to lock that stitch in place, I'm inside the circle or the petal, the teardrop right now, the lazy daisy stitch. In order to lock it, I've got to stitch over the top of it and come down, roughly there. You can come outside the petal if you want to. And that will lock that stitch in place. So I have completed one lazy daisy stitch that will hopefully stay open and add some interest. Now you can go around either clockwise or counterclockwise. I think I find that if I skip every other one as I go around, I think I just prefer the look of the end result. So I am going to do this one, but not yet. I'm going to skip one and go to the next. And again, I'm doing a lazy daisy stitch. I'm going to go back to the back. I'm going to reach in and come back up about a 1/16 of an inch or so from the edge of my petal right there. I'm going to pull that up through the circle. Do you see the circle growing smaller and smaller and smaller until I can see a teardrop? And then I'm going to lock it by stitching outside the teardrop, and that's what's going to lock that particular one in place. Let's do it one more time, my third one. So I'm almost kind of doing it in a triangular pattern, but for me, that seems to work out best. If I try to go around, I feel like I don't always get the center staying quite where I want it to be. I'm going to draw that circle around there. I'm going to go back in. I'm going to turn the work a little bit. I'm going to go, see if I can get a good handle on it. I'm going to go back in at my center. I'm going to dig in and back up. And I'm going to draw that up in the circle until I've got tight enough that it doesn't flop around, but not so tight that it goes flat and you can't see that there's some opening down the center of that lazy daisy stitch. And then to the back I go. And then just let me do one more. So I did every other one. Now I'm going to come back and fill in between those. And again, this is just a personal taste kind of a way to do it, but I feel like I keep them the same length from center out if I split the difference and go every other one and then work back around the petal and catch all the different petals. Again, pulling up through. And now a little bit of my yellow thread is showing, and that's fine. That's going to add some definition to it. And then I hop on the outside. So you go around each of the number of flowers that you chose to use from center out 6 times. Down the road a piece will learn some knots, or you could use a bead to put right there. But that's what we're going to do. I've got 4. I need to fill in 2 more to make 6, and I need to repeat that for each of my flowers. So we've couched 2 different things. We've used a long and a short stitch. We've used a lazy daisy stitch to hold motifs down. See you in the next video. Enjoy this stitching.